Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
You don't have to sacrifice both. You can excel as an athlete and as a student at the highest level in both areas. But I think we find that goes hand in hand. A lot of our best wrestlers are our best students, our mechanical engineers, our guys that are the brightest and the hardest working. Also have that same work ethic in the room. Our first match is on Saturday, November 6th against Purdue at home. That will be our first home match in almost 2 years. And so if you do that, then you are essentially on a quarter system. You're going to school for 2 quarters, and then you're working for 2 quarters. So 6 months out of the year, you're in the classroom, and 6 months out of the year, you're working a job, a paid full-time job from April to September. We have a lot of recruits that come to us and say, I want to go to a school in a city. And what our area of Philadelphia is called University City, because we're literally across the street from UPenn. So UPenn and Drexel are right across the street from each other. If you have a vision and you have a plan, the people that are close to your program, the people that are passionate about, whatever you're doing, they want to give, they want to help. This is Coach Matt Azevedo, and you're listening to Airey Brothers Radio.
First and foremost, Pats or Genos?
Well, if I had to pick from those, I would go with Pats. But there are so many good places. I mean, one of my favorite places is Jim's on South Street. They chop the meat up a little bit more finely, which I prefer. Sometimes Pats and Genos are a little bigger. Genos is kind of thicker, but there's a lot of places to get good cheesesteaks.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the Pats and Genos is more of a hype beast than anything else. Are you a provolone guy or a cheese whiz?
So I started off with the cheese whiz and like that a lot, but I've been trying to dabble with some other, like do a little provolone and that's good too, or American cheese even can be good. But I mostly do the whiz.
Okay. And is that like is that a recruiting tool? Is that if a kid comes out from out of state or from outside of Philadelphia, or is it making a trip to one of the cheesesteak joints?
Yeah. We probably did it a lot more often when I first got here. We haven't done it as much, but we've been trying to find other places to go. But we do. Food is a big focal point on visits, and so we're always trying to find new places. There's this new pizza place. I mean, it's not that new, it's been around for a while, but what's kind of considered the best pizza in the city is this Angelo's. And the Barstool gave it a big, a real good review. And so we took a recruit over there to try that. So yeah, we definitely are always trying to keep it fresh and new and, give the recruits a taste of Philly,
Yeah,
literally.
Right on. Awesome.
Talking about giving the recruits a taste of Philly, obviously that is a huge recruiting tool, right? Hey, we're in the middle of the city, right? We're in the middle of Philadelphia, but we know Drexel is a hard academic school to get into. So how much is balancing? Yes, you want all the best wrestlers to come there, but obviously you got to recruit guys that can handle the workload there.
I think back when I was coming out of high school and into college, I think I had a mentality of it was one or the other. And if I was going to be really good at one of them, then the other one was going to have to be sacrificed in a way. And what I learned actually through my experiences as a coach at Cal Poly and even really, especially at Cornell, is that you don't have to sacrifice both. You can excel as an athlete and as a student at the highest level in both areas. And I saw these kids doing it at Cornell and at Cal Poly as well. But, obviously Cornell is, it felt like another level. It's another level of wrestling, another level academically. And I think that kids are doing a better job of getting really good grades. I think there are a lot of kids out there. It seems like there's more very talented wrestlers that also have really good grades and have put their time in there. And I think, kids are seeing, parents are seeing that really, both are really important. And they actually help each other, and any kid that we have, if they're struggling in one area, it ends up affecting the other area. So, our mentality is we're gonna be excellent in both areas, both academically and athletically. So, but yeah, it is a challenging school, and it does move quick. We're on quarters, and so that work ethic is important. But I think we find that goes hand in hand. A lot of our best wrestlers are our best students, our mechanical engineers, our guys that are the brightest and the hardest working, also have that same work ethic in the room.
Yeah, it seems like, I have coached cross country, track and field, and done some wrestling coaching at the high school level. It seems not a knock on team sports, but those sort of individual sports that are kind of wrapped into a team sport where you're relying on yourself, be it on the course or on the track or on the mat. There's that extra level of that work ethic that tends to carry over into the classroom as well. You mentioned quarters. I've never heard of that. I've heard of trimesters. How does the quarter system work?
So we're kind of a both. So as a freshman, at Drexel, you are on trimesters. You'll do 3 terms, and then you'll have the summer off. But there is a 4th quarter in the summer. And after your first year, if you opt into our co-op program, which is our kind of work study program, where our kids will get full-time jobs within the field that they're studying. So if you're, an engineering major, you're gonna, apply for a bunch of engineering jobs with companies that are hiring our students, to give them on the job, real life experience. And so if you do that, then you are essentially on a quarter system. You're going to school for 2 quarters, and then you're working for 2 quarters. So 6 months out of the year, you're in the classroom, and 6 months out of the year, you're working a job, a paid full-time job from, April to September.
Okay. Do you go 6 months back to back to school, then 6 months, or is it a quarter work? Yeah.
It's back. Yeah, it's back to back. And actually it coincides with wrestling season really well for us. So, I mean, kids are in school while we're in the wrestling season, and then when the season ends, they're jumping into their co-op job, and they work that all throughout the summer. And then most of the jobs are here in and around the city. So the kids are here, they're training, all summer long. We have probably 75% of our rosters on campus all summer, working and wrestling.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Great program.
Because of that quarter system, you really don't have to change the way you schedule or program the wrestling. It really doesn't affect the wrestling at all.
No, not at all. I do find, because of the academic rigor, sometimes, when I first got here, we practiced in the afternoons, but we were having so many class conflicts that we moved our practice schedule to in the morning. We were going at 8 a.m. at one point. Now we go at 9. But that shift actually, I believe, has made us academically stronger. Our guys wake up in the morning. The first thing they do is work out. So our team workout is always in the morning. They get their hard work done, and then the rest of the day is theirs, athletically, they could, training wise, they could lift, they could come back and do an individual workout, something lighter, go for a run, but they'll have all their classes throughout the day. And then the evenings are theirs to study, or spend that time however they need to. And I think a lot of times it ends up being spent within the academics. So I think that's really improved our team GPA. We had the top GPA in the country 2 years in a row, like back in 2009, 2020, we had the number 1 GPA amongst all Division I teams. And these kids are doing some pretty tough stuff. the speed of everything, and I think the amount of classes the kids have to take, did maybe shift our practice schedule a little bit, but we just train at a different time, but the guys love it.
And do you feel that came more from class schedules and feeling that you had to do that, or do you feel that came as being around the sport for as long as you have, being an athlete for as long as you have, and realizing, hey, I do better in the morning, or like, let's get this done out of the way? Because when we talked to the other coaches, we had Coach Bono on last week, and like Rich said, Coach Spates, they both do morning practices, and they see they're getting a lot of good stuff from it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't 100% say that I foresaw that, that reaction. It was more driven by the class schedule, but it also, allowed us to do our lifting in the afternoons, which I liked, and we were, having some success with that. I kind of took Rob Cole's practice, strategy, like time strategy wise, because it was really something different. I had applied that at Drexel first, because I was used to, when I was in college, and even when I was coaching at Cal Poly, we would run and lift in the morning at like 6:30 in the morning, and then we'd wrestle in the afternoons, and that's what we've always done. So that's what we always did. Then I got to Cornell, and Rob's like, yeah, we don't do morning practice, no early morning practices. And we had one team practice every day, and it was either a wrestling workout or a lifting workout. And then we would sprinkle in individual workouts with the guys and a coach all throughout the week. Like some of the guys would do, an individual every day. Some would do one or two. But then that was our time to have that one-on-one time. And we would do those in the mornings, but it'd be around the kids' class schedules. They didn't have to get up at 6 a.m. if they didn't want to. They could, sleep in a little bit and come in at 9 or 10 or, whatever fit. So I really liked that. I was like, wow, this is really different. This is not how most wrestling programs are operating, but look at how much success we're having at Cornell. So I kind of took that same mantra and style and kind of tweaked it a little bit. And we were doing that for a couple of years, but then we were running into those class issues. So then I'm like, well, let's stick with this idea of we're going to practice one time a day, but we'll move it and do it in the morning. And there were some moans and groans. But, at the end of the year, I gave the team the option. I was like, if you don't like this, we'll go back to afternoons. If it's just, it's too grueling or whatever. So we took it to a team vote, and like over 90% of the kids voted to keep morning practice. And I was actually shocked that it was like overwhelmingly, they wanted morning, but they were like, oh, we love it. We love getting the workout over in the morning, getting the hardest part of our day done. We also feel more energized for the day and to get our, to go to class and get our work done. So we've stuck with it ever since.
Yeah, as an adult, I thoroughly on board with that, and I love getting it done first thing in the morning, getting out, getting the sunlight, getting my workout in, and then you have the rest of the day to focus on your career, life. You don't have to stress about like, when do I need to eat, so that it works well with my afternoon workout schedule. I mean, to have the hardest part of your day done before, say, 10 o'clock, and then you can go about your day and then really focus on your studies and or your job. If you have that internship, I think that's an amazing thing too. I don't know if I've heard of internships, but I don't know if I've heard of something that, for 18 months, you can have almost like at least try out a career and get paid for it.
Yeah, no, it's that's what that's one thing that Drexel, always, clarifies, is that it's not an internship, because it's not, it's not a 2 to 3 month thing. It's 6 months. It is a full-time job. You're getting paid. In fact, if you have an employer that's making you do grunt work, like make coffee or get copies, they want to know, because they don't want any of the students they want them doing real stuff. They want them to be integrated into the business, and working, in a way that they will be eventually when they graduate. So, it helps the kids understand what they want to do, and maybe even what they don't want to do. And maybe you don't spend your whole college career, going in one direction, and you're like, I don't like this, and now, where are you at? So yeah, you get to kind of try it out, and you get to make your own connections, create your own network within your, your community there. And the employer is, it's a working interview in a sense. And so a lot of kids end up getting jobs with the companies that they work for because they get recruited to come back, but it just, right. Our kids are building a resume is what I always say. That, you're not just walking away with a diploma, you're walking away with a resume, a real resume, with, where you've really worked and you've gotten in there and you've seen what it's like to be in that environment. And so our kids are very prepared, once they graduate.
I would think that in and of itself has to be a pretty huge recruiting tool.
100%, 100%. Yeah.
And with that special program, do you have a lot of kids that come to you? Maybe they might not have, got to their state tournament or whatever, but they're going to Drexel for this specific program. And, oh, I wrestle, by the way. Yes.
Yeah, that does happen. Yeah, I get flooded with emails every day, from kids that are interested in Drexel, and our engineering program is really strong. We have 100% job placement. So, we get a lot of interest from, engineering students, and, obviously combined with that co-op program, it just makes it such a unique learning environment. So yes, we do. And that's a good thing, and sometimes a kid falls in your lap. Like one of our best wrestlers from a couple of years ago, Evan Jarrell, he was one of those kids. It was like, I want to come to Drexel. I love this program, and I'm a pretty good wrestler, but he's an up and coming kid, and he was a walk on. He walked on and then became our best wrestler, by his senior year, and just an A+ human being. So yeah, so we've had some kids that's how, we became aware of them.
Yeah, and having kids like that, one of the better engineering programs, so you're gonna have kids that want to get into engineering, looking at Drexel. But how, as far as getting recruits from Pennsylvania, where you guys are heavily recruiting for, or hey, you guys have to compete against Penn State, so let's get the rest of the East Coast? Where are you guys focusing on when it comes to that stuff?
I mean,
got some Jersey guys.
Yeah, so it's kind of gone. I think there's just maybe a natural wave of how recruiting goes, but we 100% are recruiting in Pennsylvania. I love Pennsylvania wrestlers. They're just, so savvy, and they're so good in every position. So we are always recruiting in Pennsylvania, but it is competitive. I mean, not just against Penn State. Every team in the country seems like they've got their hand in Pennsylvania, because there's so many talented kids, so many good recruits. And I would say we probably had more success in Pennsylvania early on, but I would say over the last 4 or 5 years, we started having more success in Jersey. And it was always a funny thing. Like, we couldn't get interest from Jersey kids when we first got here. Probably the first 5 years. I mean, we had a couple, but it was almost like they didn't even know that Drexel was in Philadelphia. That it was actually like right on the border. It's like Drexel, it was interesting. But that was a Jersey thing though, like, because in Pennsylvania, everybody knew Drexel. So anyway, we're focused. We are Pennsylvania, New Jersey are our two. That's our bread and butter. We really want to pull most of our recruits from both of those states, but we get kids from New York, and we're trying to really get into Ohio, Michigan, and Illinois. Indiana a little bit more. I'm from the West Coast originally, so we were actually able to recruit some really, really, really highly ranked, talented kids out of the West, but it hasn't seemed to work out too well. I think the distance makes it tough. We've had a few kids come out and then go home, and not for negative reasons. I think it's just hard for them to be that far away from home and be in a city. So that the cities is definitely a different type of environment. Then the weather is another big one for the West Coast kids. And so, if it feels right, we might go back in that direction, but we're definitely putting our focus more, in our region, and it's the best region in the country. So it's a good place to be. Recruiting is just unbelievable. Within a 250-mile radius of Philadelphia, it's, some of the best kids, a large majority of the best kids in the country are right there.
So you mentioned, Coach, you're originally from the West Coast, and I know you spent some time at Arizona State, and then have since then kind of been in winter climates. Have you do you embrace winter, or because we talked to Coach Bono and he's like, no, winter still sucks. So have you embraced being in Cornell and being in Philadelphia? Do you embrace it now?
Yeah, and I would say that I like the weather in Philadelphia as I look outside a lot better than Ithaca or Iowa even. I mean, Iowa is even a whole nother level of cold and snow. But I'm glad that I experienced it though. I'm glad that I got to live in a different climate. But we truly have 4 seasons here. I felt like in Ithaca, it's like it went from summer to winter and winter to summer pretty quickly. Like spring and fall were not very long. And where here, we have a longer spring, a longer fall, and the leaves are changing. And so, and we get a little bit of snow, but we've had winters where it snowed one time here. But then we have years where it piles up feet high, several feet high. So I've embraced it. I like it. I don't mind it. I mean, do I like the weather in Tempe? Sure. Do I, enjoy Southern California? Yeah. And that's why I just try to bring my team out there as much as I can. We try to make a West Coast trip every 2 or 3 years, so we get to enjoy that, enjoy the sunshine in the middle of winter.
Right on. And you touched on one other thing with the West Coast recruits in terms of being in a city, but I think it, regardless of whether you're from the West Coast or East Coast or in the Midwest, there's a specific kind of individual that appreciates or thrives in a city environment. Do you find that you're kind of getting kids that are growing up near or around cities, or is it people that are coming from suburbia and wanting to embrace that city life?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. No, that's a great question, because we have a lot of recruits that come to us and say, I want to go to a school in a city. And that was something that was surprising to me as well. Just because I, came from the West Coast and I went to, schools that were a little more, the campuses were a little more spread out, and not, in a tight, urban city. So, yeah, I found that interesting. But yeah, a lot of kids are looking, they want to go to a school in the city. But we also, there's kids that they come and they're like, wow, coach, the city's not for me, and sometimes the kids from, the more rural parts of Pennsylvania are like, it's not for me. I want more of a rural campus. But then we have the kids that are from the rural areas. Like we brought several kids in from Lancaster, and they love the city. So, I think the one thing about Philadelphia that people are surprised. I think some kids are reluctant. They're like, I just don't know if I'm going to like Philadelphia. We get them on campus and they're like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is nothing like I thought. I think they're thinking, sometimes Manhattan or, New York City and that feel. And Philadelphia is definitely more open, more wide open. And there's a lot of green spaces and it's very walkable. It's a large city population wise, but you can get around it pretty easily. And so I've embraced it as well. I mean, I've never really lived in a city. So, I mean, it was, for me, it's been something different, but I really enjoy, having access to everything the city has to offer.
Yeah, Coach, that was kind of going to be my next question, being at Drexel for 11 years and coming from Cornell. What was your thought of, moving to the city when you're up at Cornell, and what is your thoughts now, 11 years in there? Like, are you good in the city, or at some point would you like to kind of get out of the city?
So part of the reason I got interested into this job was because of Rob Cole. Rob was like, hey, there's I think this could be a good fit for you. He's like, one, he felt like Drexel was a sleeping giant. He's like, they're fully funded, they're in Philadelphia. It's a recruiting hotbed, and then we had the co-op was something unique that we had to offer that we could sell. But he's like, but I think you would also enjoy the city probably a little bit more than maybe like more rural Ithaca. And so, and he was right. And so, as the more I looked into Drexel, I was like, wow, this is, we can win here. We could be really good. But then the city, I was a little bit like, okay, well, how are we going to like the city? And even when I got on campus, I thought, wow, are we going to be able to recruit kids here? Are kids going to want to come to the city? Like that was a little bit of a foreign concept for me. Then I quickly found out that yes, there's a lot of kids that want to come to the city. So, and we've always had very positive feedback when we brought kids to campus. And what our area of Philadelphia is called University City, because we're literally across the street from UPenn. So UPenn and Drexel are right across the street from each other. So you have all these students, this very young college vibe going on in this one little area of Philadelphia called University City. So it's really unique. It's really cool. I enjoy it. I don't live in the city. I live in the suburbs, but you don't have to be too far out, and it's very green. And it's almost has somewhat of a rural feel, and I'm only about 10, 11 miles out of the city. So it's like this really drastic change, which is nice too. So you get a little bit of the both, best of both there. Yeah, I really enjoy the area around Philadelphia, like the culture, the people. They're just passionate, and there's a lot going on. A lot of young people, and really enjoyed the Philadelphia area.
Are you a Philadelphia sports fan?
I am. I've converted. So, growing up in Las Vegas, I was born in California. I grew up in Las Vegas. I probably didn't really have a team. I had some teams that I followed and I liked and stuff, but like, I always thought it'd be so cool and was always jealous about not living in a city that has sports teams. And so when I moved to Philadelphia, I was just like, all right, I'm going all in. In fact, I just got home. My sister got married on Saturday in Vegas. So my family still lives in Las Vegas. So I went back to Las Vegas. My sister got married, and the Eagles were playing the Raiders in Vegas yesterday. So we went to the game. Nice. So I took a red eye home last night, got in this morning and worked for a little bit. And so I've kind of I've really gotten into watching the Eagles and the Phillies, and we get down there and get to the games pretty often.
What was the new stadium like?
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah, it's black. It's all black, which is so kind of unique. It's just this huge black, structure. But then you go inside and it's like, it's Vegas. You go in and there's bars and lounges. And I think even in the one end zone, there's it's almost like a nightclub setup where, you could get bottle service, and there's a DJ and stuff. It's very Vegas. But it was really neat. It's huge. It's huge. Yeah, it was cool. It was, yeah. I haven't been in too many domes. Most stadiums are, I've been outdoor. And so you get inside of a dome, it's just it's a different feel. It actually feels bigger. But yeah, Eagles didn't get the win though. So, so we had to hear it. You need to hear it on the way out. So
yeah, it's been a tough season for the NFC East.
Yeah.
What's it like growing up in Vegas?
That's a question I get a lot. And believe it or not, growing up, Vegas had a pretty small feel. It was it's exploded. It's doubled in size since I was in high school. But it had a very small feel to it. And I bet it was similar to growing up in most places. There was Vegas was going on all the time, 24 hours a day, right? But as a kid, we didn't go down there very often. We would, if there was a new casino, you go down there, check it out. And sometimes there were some attractions, like some roller coasters and things. But for the most part, we did our own thing in our neighborhood. I would say Vegas, became something that I was able to enjoy more when I turned 21. So then, towards the end of college and when I graduated, I had some friends that, then we could kind of, go down to the casinos, maybe do a little gambling, although I'm not a gambler. I don't really like to gamble, but I think what Vegas offers is, just a lot of unique opportunities. There's a lot of cool shows and a lot of great places to eat. And now they have sports teams. It's a lot different than what it was when I grew up. It was, definitely had a smaller feel. Now it feels big.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Coach, kind of to bring it back to the wrestling. I appreciate you talking to us about Vegas because I've always wondered that as well. Because I know there's Bishop Gorman down there, and I know they have a pretty good wrestling team. I always see Ricky doing crazy shit on the internet.
Yeah.
Is that where you went to high school by any chance, or no?
I went to El Dorado High School.
Okay.
And we were the powerhouse at that point. We had won 9 out of 10 years. We'd won 8 state championships in a row. My freshman year, our team won the 8th state championship in a row. And then my sophomore year, we faltered a little bit. But then we came back my junior year and we won it again. And then I ended up moving to California. I wrestled at Calvary Chapel High School my senior year for my uncle.
What
John.
year was that?
That was 1996 was my senior year.
Were you there with Joe Cal by any chance?
Yes. Yeah. Joe Calavita. Uh-huh. Yeah. And Coach Cal. Yeah. It was Joe's older brother, but yeah, Joe was 1 year younger than me.
All right. I went to the Eternal Warrior wrestling camp when I was in high school and in college, and Joe's like one of those guys that no one knows about, but was one of the best wrestlers I've ever wrestled. And anytime I can put him over, I will, because I think he's a badass.
Oh yeah. I mean, as a kids wrestling, oh my gosh. I mean, there wasn't the same notoriety or coverage. I mean, but he's just like any of these young guys now that they're talking about so much. I mean, that was Joe Calavita. I mean, he didn't lose. He didn't lose. I remember seeing first time I ever saw him at a kids tournament. He's like walking around. He's got an Iowa hat on, an Iowa shirt. He's just super serious. And I'm like, whoa, like that was kind of my first, because I didn't start wrestling until 7th grade. And I saw that and I was like, whoa, this is a whole nother level that I didn't even know existed, but then our paths ended up crossing. We were teammates at Calvary Chapel, and great talent.
Small world.
Yeah.
So with last year was probably one of the craziest wrestling seasons ever, right? No one knew what was going on, had a couple weeks season, and then boom, right to the NCAA tournament. What is the feeling like on campus right now? Do you feel like you're back to normal? Do you guys feel like you're going to have a normal season? What's the team looking like right now?
Yeah, we are going to have a normal season. I mean, we still are dealing with it a little bit. We had to split our practices a little bit at first when we first came back to campus. And there is some testing that's still going on. But for the most part, it's pretty much back to normal. We're back. We're practicing as a team at 9 a.m. And, we're back in the weight room. Our weight room was shut down last year as well. We couldn't get in there. So we are, in Philadelphia, we are still wearing masks indoors in the city of Philadelphia. So the kids do have to wear masks to class, but we're practicing. Our first match is on Saturday, November 6th against Purdue at home. That will be our first home match in almost 2 years. Wow. It's probably been 1 year and 9 months since we've had a home duel meet, because we didn't have any home duels last year. We weren't allowed to. It was just too many. It was just too strict, in Philadelphia. So we wrestled all of our matches away. So we're back. We've got a full schedule. We're super excited. We got 7 home matches. We open up with Purdue, which is pretty exciting. We go out to Oklahoma State Thanksgiving weekend. We're going to wrestle out there, and we're excited about that trip. And we've got a great schedule. We've got teams like Maryland and Duke. We've got Oregon State coming to Philadelphia. We have Cornell at home. And of course, we always wrestle Penn. And this year it'll be down at the Palestra. So we've got a great schedule. We've got a lot of, it's got some nice balance. And a lot of the usual suspects from the EIWA.
So is Penn your guys' big rival?
Yeah, it's funny because we're partners. We work together. We collaborate on the Pennsylvania Regional Training Center, the PRTC. We have Brandon Slay as the head coach, and I don't know if you might be aware, but yeah, we have Jordan Burroughs is with us now, and Joey McKenna, Dave McFadden, Mark Hall, Ethan Lezak, and we've got a great thing going here in Philly. And so we're partners, we're working together. But then, I think there's been a healthy rivalry that's been, started between the two programs. When I first got here, Penn and Drexel weren't wrestling, and they hadn't wrestled for quite a while. And so I was able to get that going again. Rob Eider was the head coach at that point. So we got that going again, and they beat us up for a few years. And now we've won the last 5 duels in a row, but it's, it's very competitive. They're very tight duels, and since Roger's taken over again, their program's on the rise, our program's on the rise. And so I would say, it's a healthy rivalry. We have a lot of respect for each other. We train together, but then there's obviously, then you're also competing. So, but, I really enjoy working with those guys. They're class acts.
Yeah, the Penn RTC had a really solid 2020 in terms of who they brought in to impact the roster, be a part of the program. How impactful and how much of a tool is that when you're bringing guys in where you can, let them know that they're going to have the opportunity to train with Jordan Burroughs, Joey McKenna, Mark Hall, some of those guys. David McFadden is on staff too. I mean, it's got to be a huge tool for the Jersey guys too, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, it's super impactful. And really, in this day and age, if you want to be a top 10 team, you have to have a regional training center. So the PRTC, definitely has a huge impact on our recruiting, and it has a huge impact on our student athletes' development. I mean, they're when you get to even just train side by side with an Olympic champion like Jordan Burroughs, and you see the work ethic and you see what goes into what he does on a daily basis, that's going to have a positive impact on everybody in the room. Then obviously if you can actually get in there and wrestle with them, it just takes it to a whole nother level. But it's vital, to our program's success. And I just feel, lucky and fortunate to be able to work with another college, essentially a competitor. We're able to, work through that. And, I think too, our programs are, and universities are different enough too, that, it's, we're not always directly competing against each other for recruits. Sometimes we are, but, they don't have scholarship, we do. And so it definitely, the way we have to go about recruiting is, it's probably different, because of the different aspects of the program. Little nuances, I guess,
Yeah.
But yeah, it 100% helps recruiting. And, it's just something that's, it's mandatory these days in Division I wrestling.
And when did you guys get that going? Was that rolling when you got there? Because I know UPenn, they used to partner with like the Sunkiss kids back in the day, and then I kind of fell out of wrestling, and then now everyone has the RTCs. How did that get going for you guys?
Yeah, so when I was at Cornell, that was when the RTC system first started. And so Rob kind of gave that project to me. He's like, okay, here, you need to get this going. You need to figure this out with compliance so that we can start having these practices. And so I got really knowledgeable about how all that worked and realized very quickly how important it was, because essentially it's a loophole to get recruits into your room. Like, we can get prospects into our room. We can train with them. We can coach them. They can work with our team. And so it's like, we have to have this, So then when I went to Drexel, I was like, one of the first things I was, going to do was start a regional training center. Well, Rob Eider had already started one at Penn, kind of just in name. There weren't any senior level athletes or anything, but it was, a way to get recruits into your room. So, so he had started the Philadelphia Regional Training Center. And so him and I sat down and had a meeting. He's like, well, what do you think if we just if we just did this together? That way you don't have to start one, and we can just operate under this same umbrella, especially if we're just trying to get recruits into our room. So that's kind of how that started. And then Roger came back into the picture when there was a coaching change, and Roger, basically started a whole new organization called the Pennsylvania Regional Training Center. We call it the PRTC, and was like, we're going to really take this thing to a whole nother level. It's not just going to be, an RTC in name. We're actually going to, hire coaches and, hire athletes and, raise all the money to make that happen. And so that was kind of how that all started. So it's been about 6 years now that we've had the PRTC, and Brandon Slay has been out here now for 5 or 6. I think the very first year he wasn't on staff, and then he was brought out from the training center to take over. So, and he's just done a great job, and he's got such great relationships across, USA Wrestling. And so his influence has been huge on the organization. There's no doubt.
And do you guys split locations, or is there a standalone location?
Yeah, no, essentially both of our wrestling rooms are the regional training center. So essentially we have two buildings, 2 physical buildings, Drexel Wrestling Room, Penn Wrestling Room. That's the PRTC. So we host practices, they host practices. So like when we do our development practices for the high school kids, we would switch off back and forth every week. One week at Drexel, 1 week at Penn. Obviously during the pandemic, it was tough. We couldn't get into our rooms, so we were driving to New Jersey. We were renting space over at a club over there, Underground Wrestling Club, and so that's where the PRTC was operating out of. And we even were holding some practices at Paulsboro Wrestling Club. So our kids were having to drive over the bridge every day to practice last fall. And so that was another way that the PRTC really stepped up and helped both programs be able to practice during a time where we couldn't inside the city. So, and it just makes sense to have this partnership, because there's no other place in the whole United States that has 2 Division I wrestling teams that are within walking distance. We're 3 blocks away. Our wrestling room's 3 blocks from their wrestling room. So it's easy for us to just walk back and forth. So it's really unique, and I'm glad we're able to make it work. And it's just, we barely scratched the surface. I believe on what type of success we're going to have, and ultimately we'd like to see our student athletes graduate on and become the professional athletes, our senior level team. So we have a few guys on our team. Penn has a few guys that are definitely very good freestyle wrestlers, and we hope to keep them, have opportunities for them to train, and make a living.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be unbelievable as a high school kid, to have that, within 250-mile radius, and you could go to an RTC. I mean, you have the PRTC, you have the NJRTC, you have the NYCRTC. The options are just, I mean, some kids probably have to rein them in a little bit and say, hey, we gotta, at least in season, let's focus on one thing at a time. But I mean, to get all those different looks in all those different rooms has got to be phenomenal for the kids, but then also great recruiting tools.
Yeah, I mean, all of that is 100% correct. I mean, these junior high and high school kids are now exposed to things that we were just not exposed to, when we were growing up. You didn't have access to that, and I always say I was lucky. I had really, really good coaches. My uncle was an NCAA champion and an Olympian, placed at the Worlds. And, so I was lucky that way. Even my high school coach at El Dorado was one of the best coaches in the country at the time. And so I was really fortunate. So I was around good partners and good coaching, but everyone doesn't have that, but now with the way the clubs are set up and the RTCs, it's like these kids, especially here on the East Coast where everything's so close, they have access to so much stuff. And then even think about all the videos they can watch, just you go on Instagram, there's all these cool highlights of people teaching technique. And, I just think we're seeing these wrestlers get to higher levels at an earlier age. Are they better than they were 20, 30 years ago? I don't know about that, but I think they're definitely at a higher level, younger than, more of them. Obviously you had your phenom, you always had your phenoms, but it feels like there's like lots of phenoms, lots of these young guys that are just so good, as 13, 14-year-olds. And they're just like, I mean, I just went and did a clinic up in just north of the city, Faith Christian, and they have some 7th and 8th graders that are like, I'm watching them and I'm just going, oh my gosh, like you guys, you're training, you look like a college kid already with the types of techniques that they're hitting and the speed and the intensity. It's just like, whoa. I mean, it's impressive. But with good coaching, good partners, you see how quickly, probably it's quicker at, when you get to them younger, they don't get those bad habits.
Yeah, totally.
When kids wrestling.
Coach,
So,
and talking about your uncle, right, and working with Coach Cole, obviously wrestles under Bobby Douglas. So you've been around some great coaches, and I mean, obviously, with all those coaches being around them, you're gonna have a great mind for the sport. Do you see yourself in certain times like, oh, that's from my uncle, or oh, that's from Coach Cole? And at this point, do you feel like you've taken all that stuff and you have like a solid system of everything you've learned and accumulated from all your coaches?
yeah, 100%. I mean, I always say like I really learned how to run the wrestling side of things from my uncle. I really feel like he's a wrestling genius. He just knows the sport in a way that's, I just think extra special. And he knows how to teach systems and create drills and just, teach and, translate what he wants you to do to the student, to the athlete. Like, it's just in no other way. I've never seen it before. I mean, I'm obviously partial. He's my uncle, but he really is one of the best coaches out there. And anybody who works with them, would say the same thing. He's a guru. And even how he is with his athletes and, peaking and, drills and techniques and systems and peaking, all that stuff. So really learned a lot from him that way. And I was very lucky to be around him, throughout my entire career. And then, I think shifting to Cornell, I really learned how to run the business side of things, but obviously Rob has a great wrestling mind. And I picked up a lot of really cool things from him, like kind of out of the box type of thinking of how to train guys or, different techniques or drills to do. And, but I would say more I took from him is, how to run the business side of things, how important relationships are, with parents, recruits, alumni, administration. Those relationships are so important to you, to your success and your program's success. And, so I got to learn, I got to see it firsthand, recruiting at a really high level, fundraising at a really high level, and just, even the marketing and promotions of matches, like just doing all these extra things to just, add value to the program. My eyes were really opened up to, a whole new way of kind of approaching coaching. It's not just wrestling. You're not just coaching wrestling as a Division I coach, or, as a college coach in general. I mean, you have to wear a lot of hats. So, I was definitely got to see that he's probably one of the best, if not the best at doing those other items I just talked about, within the program. I was telling stories about Coach Douglas the other day to some of because I have a whole new coaching staff: Scott Parker, CJ LaFregola, and Dave McFadden. So they were like, Dave was asking me some questions, and I was telling him the stuff that Bobby would have us do, and how just hard and grueling our preseason was, and some of the stuff we did. It's like if I tried to do some of that stuff nowadays, it wouldn't fly. These kids would look at me like I'm crazy, like I have two heads. I told them, I was like, there's no team in the country that worked harder than us. No way. There's no way. I mean, the things we did were just tough, and it's just a lot of it, a lot of volume. But I think there's been a trend to, shifting away from volume and, being more, precise with, or being more intentional with what you're doing with your time, not just doing as much as you can, but being, really intentional with what you're learning, what you're drilling, efficiency, and rest and, being healthy. I think, changing things a little bit also, I think, helps us prevent injuries, guys not maybe getting as hurt as much. I mean, I remember there was always just so many injuries, but why, I don't know, but you asked about coaches having influence. I think what's kind of cool is I see a lot of Iowa State's influence on Penn State, the way Kale and Cody are running their program and the style of wrestling that you're seeing out of those Penn State wrestlers is very similar, very reminiscent of what we were doing at Iowa State when we were there. And, our philosophy was always like, we're going to outwork everybody. We're going to wrestle really hard, but we're going to score a lot of points, and we're going to do it with technique. We're not just going to be this team that grinds and goes hard and bangs heads. We're going to be a technical team. We're going to go out. We're going to get takedowns. We're going to score points, but we're going to be in great shape, and we're going to push the pace. And that's what we were told. That's what we were taught. That's what, this is the type of team we're going to be. And we were, we didn't win a national championship. We came close, but that, and then you see, Kale bringing that same type of mentality to Penn State, and just executing it at an unbelievable rate. So yeah, it's cool. Even like some of the technique, like you see them doing, it's like, that's a Bobby Douglas technique. That's a Bobby Douglas drill. I mean, I see it. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that Bobby Douglas was probably one of the last individuals to ever beat Dan Gable in a match, and he put it on him pretty good.
Yeah. Bobby would pull out old tapes every once in a while. Coach Douglas would pull out tapes and show us. He had like old 8mm tapes of him wrestling, and yeah, he was good. He was really good.
So outside of the hands-on kind of wrestling aspect, the technique, the live wrestling coaching aspect of practice or coaching, I should say, do you have a favorite hat?
Oh, that's a good question. I like fundraising. I do. I mean, it can be stressful, and even sometimes a little bit intimidating, asking people to, to donate. You're asking them for them to, give you money, give money to your program, give money to your, your initiatives and stuff. But what I found is that, if you have a vision and you have a plan, the people that are close to your program, the people that are passionate about, whatever you're doing, they want to give, they want to help. They enjoy that. And it's just about communicating, with them and keeping them involved and, letting them know why. You're right. Giving them a why is this is why this is important. It all goes back towards the student athletes. And so I enjoy that because I see the impact that it has. The fundraising has made a huge impact on our program. Since I've been here, we've been able to build a brand new locker room. We've been able to remodel our wrestling room and make and put an addition on. We've done so many things. We're able to travel all over the country. We don't have to worry about, can we take this trip or that trip? And the fundraising has allowed us to do that, and it's allowed us to grow our assistant coaching positions. Now both of my positions are full-time, which they weren't when I first got here. It was just one was full-time, one was a grad assistant. So we've been able to elevate all of the areas within our program, and it's all been done through fundraising. That's been cool. It's been cool to really, re-engage alumni and bring them back, to the university and get back involved with our program just in a different way. So yeah, I enjoy that. I mean, I enjoy the wrestling. I enjoy the wrestling, and it's hard sometimes to take that step back and let your assistants, take on more of that, because it's who we are. That's why we do it. We love the sport. But sometimes I've got to realize sometimes my time is better spent in other areas. And fundraising is a big lifeline there, for our success, for any program success for that matter. Recruiting, I enjoy recruiting as well. Recruiting is it's fun. It's a challenge, and it's always a great feeling when a kid says yes, a kid that you really want, and you put a lot of time into showing them what your program's all about. And then they're like, yeah, I want that. That is a great feeling. But yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. But yeah, I'd say the fundraising probably. Yeah. So it's, but it's, it's funny, like people say like, oh, you coach. So do you teach? They always ask, do you teach? And is that a year-round job? And it's like, yeah, believe it or not, it is. Recruiting is year-round, and it's, it's always there. It's always something that you have to keep up on. And so But I enjoy it. I just enjoy working with the kids,
With that said, do you still get in there and scrap every once in a while?
Oh yeah. I still get in there and scrap. I don't like to drill as much. I will, but I prefer just to go live. I'll get in there, warm up, and I'll just jump in on the live goes. But yeah, no, I wrestle at least once a week, like actually in practice. But then we're grabbing guys and doing individual workouts and stuff. But yeah, I'm in decent shape. But I definitely feel I'm slowing down. My reactions aren't as fast as they used to be. So that's the biggest thing I see. But technically, I'm better, right? I'm winning the mental battle out there. But sometimes the speed and the power is just too much, and I can't keep up with some of these kids.
Coach, and talking about the recruiting aspect of things, I know it was different the last year because of COVID and whatnot. But is a messy room a deal breaker for you?
Say that again?
Is if you go to a recruit's house and they have a messy room, is that a deal breaker for you?
I don't know. I mean, I think that, I guess I think every kid. So the answer would be no. I've had some really messy kids that have been, like I said, like I said, the same kid I was talking about before, one of the messiest guys on our team, but straight A student, hardest worker on the team, best wrestler on the team. So it doesn't always correlate, but it is funny. Like I think I'm very perceptive when it comes to those types of things. And yeah, some of those things can be red flags. You can see some things early on that are like, maybe this kid wouldn't be the right fit for us. Or we wouldn't be the right fit for him, either, and that's something that's really important to me in recruiting, is trying to figure out, it's like, is it going to be a good fit for both? It's like, we really want you, but it's like, if you're not going to be successful here, it doesn't matter if I can convince you to come. It's not going to be good for either the team or that individual. So, I definitely, like to spin it in some ways too. It's like, this is a great opportunity for you as well. We are recruiting you, and a lot of schools are after you, but at the same time, it's like, what you're getting from out of our program, athletically, and academically is something special as well. And, being grateful for that is important. So, I think finding that fit where it's going to be good for both. And we're not convincing somebody to come that's not going to work out.
Do you think, because you're looking at kids for the long run, right? Can they make it through Drexel, and can they get a career after Drexel? Yes, you want the best wrestlers they can be, but obviously there's other things. Do you think, because you're looking for those other things and a good wrestler, that can help you not be a used car salesman and kind of look for the kid's best interest, because you're looking for the best interest of the program in turn?
Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm real big on being honest and upfront and just saying how it is. And that's why I tell kids, I'm like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think and how I feel, and put everything out on the table so that we can both make an educated, decision here. And that's what I ask out of them as well. Sometimes there's some kids and families that play games and they're not telling you everything. And, that I've learned is a red flag as well, and it's right. And it's like, I'm going to sell you, but I don't want to have to beg you, it's like, this is who we are. This is what we have to offer. We have a lot of great things to offer every recruit. And it's like, but if you don't want that, that's fine. Then you're going to be better suited to go somewhere else. But, right. I think if you're honest and you're passionate about what you're doing, you believe in what you're doing, it's easy to not be a used car salesman, so yeah, I think that's a big part of, with me, it's like, what you see is what you get, we're gonna, my biggest, I think our biggest selling point is it's like, we're going to go all in on you. You come here, you're our guy. We're going to go all in on you no matter what. No matter how good you end up being as a wrestler, we're going to be in your corner. We're going to be helping you, beyond college. We're going to help you, find co-ops. We're going to help you find a job after you graduate. You're always going to be a dragon. You're always going to be a part of this family and an important, part of that. So, I think that's big. You're going to go somewhere and be there for 5 years. Like, you want to like the people, you want to believe in those people, and feel that they have your best interests in mind. And interestingly enough, like, I always ask kids, what are 2 or 3 of the most important things you're looking for in a program? And you'll hear all kinds of, answers. But lately, I feel like a lot of recruits, at least one of their reasons is, I want to be around a coaching staff that cares about me and, wants my best interest. And that's like been specifically said, and sometimes, kind of meshed with the team. Like, I want to be a part of a team that I feel a part of, essentially. Like, I want to feel welcomed. And so those are 2 things that popped up recently that more than normal, usually you're hearing the typical, like, wrestler, like workout partners, or, I want this major. And they're actually talking more about the relationships that they plan to have when they get there from, a lot of, like, varying levels of recruits as well. It's so interesting.
I think the overall sort of level of maturity of the high school athlete is, in terms of kind of the internet, social media, kind of elevating not only the training game and the technique, but sort of that just overall kind of IQ of the sport and what they want is I've seen it since I've been coaching. It's just elevated the sport to a whole new level, and I like it.
Yeah, there's so much more knowledge. I mean, these families now have a lot more knowledge than they used to. I mean, I remember when I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I went on all my recruiting visits by myself without my parents, which that hardly ever happens anymore. Parents are on almost every visit. And, I was kind of making the decision on my own with my parents' guidance, but that's a big difference. But I still find that I have to educate families, on the process and educate them. And that's where I try to help them too, and it's like, even if it hurts me a little bit, it's like, this is what you need to be looking for. These are the questions you need to be asking, because ultimately, again, it's like, it's gotta be the right fit. I've definitely, made that mistake several times where you bring kids in and it ends up not being the right fit. And then, it's just, you've invested so much into this, one kid, and now they're gone. So that's part of the learning process for me, is like, finding, learning to kind of find that sweet spot.
Coach, you got Purdue on November 6th. Have you is the roster set? Have you had wrestle-offs? Do you believe in wrestle-offs? Is Drexel a wrestle-off team? I know some coaches don't necessarily rely on wrestle-offs to pick their roster. What's your philosophy and strategy going into Purdue?
It's changed a little bit throughout the years, but yeah, I would say right now, no, we don't do wrestle-offs. The kids are competing in the room against each other, and we're getting an idea there. A little bit where things stand, but ultimately, we want to see what they're going to do in competition. So ultimately, our number one deciding factor is who's competing better in competition. And so early in the year, we have some tournaments where we can bring multiple guys and have them compete side by side. But, going into Purdue, obviously we do have to make a lineup, and there has to be some separation there. And so I try not to have wrestle-offs until I absolutely have to have wrestle-offs. And that's kind of where I've, kind of shifted. When I first got to Drexel, we were having wrestle-offs. We had everybody wrestle off. And then about 3 years in a row, I lost one of my starters to a season-ending injury in a wrestle-off. And so it was like, I don't think we're going to do this anymore. This is not working out for us. So, and I also kind of felt that I started seeing kids like drop off sooner. Like, they lose the wrestle off early. They're not in the starting lineup, and then they start losing interest, and, maybe that's recruiting, but I think having that carrot and having that competition is important. And this year, especially, we're going to have more competition on our team than we've ever had. So, I mean, we're planning on having, two pretty solid guys competing for, most of the spots in the starting lineup. And we have a few spots that are pretty solidified. And that's the other thing. It's like, I'm not going to, I have guys that are nationally ranked and have been to the national tournament or trying to be national champions and All-Americans. Like, I'm not going to make them wrestle off, but, we are, we're challenging them in the room and we're definitely, getting them ready that way with competition within, with their teammates. But we may have to have a couple matches, just because I said we do have some weight classes that are pretty competitive right now, but there's a chance we'll just pick, and then we will wrestle in 2 tournaments the next 2 weekends, and then that will kind of dictate what happens moving forward.
Yeah,
but I'll say one thing. I do like the wrestle off because it brings finality. Not totally, but does kind of bring finality to the situation. Sometimes you have kids that it's like, well, I should be in there. I could beat that guy. Well, then you can have the match, and then, we'll see who wins the match. And obviously, and I feel like as an athlete, the athlete can accept that result. When the coach is picking and they think that they haven't had a chance to prove themselves, they might be a little disgruntled. But when you have the match, it does solidify, at least in that moment, who the better guy is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think you raise a pretty good point to kind of leave it open till towards the end of the season. You absolutely have to have guys, because if you do that the first couple of weeks in the season, you don't know who you're going to lose. You don't know who's going to get discouraged. But you and I both know, different brackets on an open tournament, someone's going to have a better day, someone's not. And, next thing you know, that guy can be the starter for that week, and he's going to get the confidence rolling and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty smart and kind of evolving with the time. So yeah, we're going to have wrestle offs, but only if we absolutely need them. And maybe we'll wait to the end of the season.
Yeah. And I just, I look back, not only have I had great coaches, I've been on great teams. I was on a Nevada state championship team, a California state championship team. At Iowa State, we took second, twice while I was there. And when I was coaching at Cornell, we took second twice. And so I sometimes try to reflect back and think, okay, why were these teams so successful? What was a big part of that? And a lot of it, I always go back to, there's competition in the room. There's real competition in the room. The competition makes everybody better. Everybody rises when there's competition. And so that's something that I've really been trying to do through our recruiting, but also through what we're talking about here, how we structure the season and how we decide who wrestles. Creating more competition and giving more guys an opportunity to prove themselves and potentially be the guy is going to benefit our team in a lot of different ways. And it keeps the wrestlers engaged and keeps them motivated because they feel like they still have a chance and something to work for.
Rich, you got anything else? You want to get some rapid fire in?
I would say let's get Coach some good old wrestling rapid fire, and then our traditional Airey Bros rapid fire, and we'll get him out of here so he can go get some rest after that red eye.
I know my eyes are a little puffy.
They always seem like a good idea.
Right.
Right. That's the thing. Right. But it's just like every time it's like, red eye or not.
Yeah.
Coach, what wrestling shoe are you wearing right now in the Drexel wrestling room when you're stepping on the mat? And what is your favorite wrestling shoe of all time if you're a wrestling shoe head?
Well, I'm wearing it. I'm wearing my favorite wrestling shoe of all time. It's the Asics International Light, the blue and pink ones. So that I wore those in high school, my senior year, and then when they re-released those, I bought a couple pair. I'm like, I'm getting these. I loved those shoes. And so, yeah, that's the shoe I'm wearing. I'm wearing my favorite shoe. Yeah.
Sweet.
Nice. That's a good shoe. Is it States or state?
Well, for me, it's state. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Coming from the West Coast, it's just someone called me on it today. In fact, I'm like, how do you do it state? And then like my assistant goes, state. Yeah. But, I will say states. So since I've been out on the East Coast for 12 or 13 years now, it is rubbing off on me a little bit. So I will say states in certain ways, but I still say state also.
So to add to that, Coach, I know when you wrestle, do you tell people you're wrestling 25 or 25s?
Ooh. I might say both. I definitely say 25s. I definitely say that for sure. But I might, I definitely don't. It's always abbreviated for sure, though, one way or the other.
Yeah, I feel like putting the S on the end. I feel like that's a West Coast thing. I feel like I didn't hear that till I went out to the West Coast.
Yeah, I think I do both, but I definitely put the S on there at times. There's for sure.
I would say when you're talking to Jersey guys, call it states just for recruiting purposes. Get a little.
Well, and I've keyed in on that, and I think that's where. So I've been trying to make it a little bit more of a mental note of saying it that way. Well, the other thing is tournament. That's a word that sounds so foreign to me when I hear that. You know, for us, it's a tournament. It's a tournament out west.
Yeah. Is it stance in motion or stance and motion?
Stance in motion. Yeah.
Okay.
Coach, do you think there should be stalling, or do you think it should just be a push out rule?
I don't like the push out for college for a different reason. I like the wrestling on the edge. I love that you can have, one body part in bounds and still continue to wrestle. I think that that's been a great addition to college wrestling. The out of bounds is frustrating. I think they should get rid of the push and just, if you go out of bounds, you're stalling. So it's almost like a push out rule, but I don't think the guy that is moving forward should ever be penalized, even if he is pushing. It's like the guy that's got his back to the edge should stay in. It's his responsibility. So, I mean, what's the answer? I don't know. I mean, a push out rule I think would be fine. I don't think I'd hate it, but we would lose out on a lot of edge of the mat wrestling, which I do think is pretty cool. I would make it, I would just kind of make that rule a little more hybrid. It would almost be like a push out rule, but instead you get warned for stalling instead of it being an automatic point. And you can't get penalized for pushing the guy. I think that doesn't make any sense to me.
Coach, I got one last one here for you for the wrestling side of things. You're in Philadelphia now. You're pretty close to the Jersey border. You got a pretty good roster full of Jersey guys. Do you weigh in on the pork roll Taylor ham debate at all?
No, I haven't. No, I don't, because I don't have a lot of experience with it. Yeah.
Have you had it though?
I have. Yeah. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I mean, so lunch trucks are really big on our campus, but I always go for the turkey bacon. That's my go-to. So I haven't gotten it. Maybe I need to become a little bit more of a connoisseur. Yeah, especially with all the Jersey guys.
Yeah, I'd say like Central South Jersey, talking recruits, pork roll. You got the North Jersey guys. It's Taylor ham.
Okay.
Coach, do you have a daily practice or a daily ritual?
Coffee, does that count?
Yeah, well, that's the next question, so that leads right into it.
Yeah, nothing specific. I'm trying to. So recently I've started journaling. So I am journaling on a daily basis. So, but it's something newer that I started back in like April and May. So I've been since then, journaling every single day. So that's something, that I have been doing daily. It's newer to my routine. And that's been really helpful, actually. I wish I would have started sooner,
Respect the Airey Bros get down with the journaling 100%. I do my gratitudes, 5 gratitudes, 5 things I love every morning, every night before I go to bed. But we definitely get down with the journaling as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you free flow, or do you have like an agenda that you go through every morning, or a specific thing that you're touching on every day?
Yeah, so I try to I visit my goals, and I'm working on gratitude too. I have our whole team does something similar. Right now we're doing it once a week, and we're talking about maybe doing it every day before practice. We have what we call gratitude journals, and there's a preset things to fill in, like 3 things that you're grateful for. They write down their individual goal for the season, the team's goal for the season, and then they write down 3 essentially action items at the bottom, 3 things they need to do to move themselves closer to their goals. So we're doing that as a team. And so I'm working on that as well. And so I have like a list of things, my gratitude list. I've got my goals. I'm working with somebody who's trying to help me create more of a system where, right, there's a journal, but then there's these other aspects that you're using, that you're working on weekly to, move you closer to your goals essentially, and have success in the areas that you want, whatever it is. Even if it's like a financial goal so I've created some goals in different areas of my life, and I'm, then trying to organize how I'm attacking it. The journal mostly for me is just, I'm kind of documenting what I'm doing on a daily basis. But then incorporating, all the things I'm working on as well. It's pretty cool. And he's helped me create a way to like link everything. So you can, in your journal, you click this and it's going to take you to another page. I'm using OneNote. So it's been helpful.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. Like Jimmy said, we're big journal guys. So whenever we can get new tips or add things to the repertoire, we appreciate it. So thank you for that. You mentioned you're a coffee drinker. How do you brew it? How do you take it?
So grind the beans fresh every morning, and I always add a little bit of milk or cream. I'll change it up every now and then, but yeah, just a little bit, kind of cool it down a little and soften it up.
So being that you're in Philly, have you been to Cafe Ultima by any chance?
No.
That's like one of the best pour overs in the country. That's where all like the hipster coffee people go. I don't know as far as relation to the campus, but I know I've been dragged there a couple times by some of my coffee snob friends.
Okay, I'll have to write that down. Cafe what?
Ultimo.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll check that out.
Are you a light roast, medium roast, or dark roast guy?
Probably medium and light. I mean, I'll drink the dark roast. I mean, I also will go like, I'll change it up and get an Americano every once in a while and add a little cream. I like that. But mostly just coffee.
Awesome.
Coach, what was that?
I said, how about you guys?
We're pour over guys. Rich likes to go for some of the fancier stuff. I'll let him talk about that, but I just like a good pour over. And in the summer, I got really into the cold brews just because you can drink it and be out the door right away. So I definitely play with the nitro cold brew and the cold brews.
Okay, yeah, I enjoy that every once in a while too.
Yeah, we do AeroPress, which is kind of like a pressurized inverted French press.
Okay.
And I was doing oat milk for a minute, and then I found out that it had canola oil in it. So now I'm back to just doing black coffee, and when I'm on the road, I do Americanos.
Okay.
Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music-wise, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
So I'm actually looking to start reading The Talent Code. So it's a book that I read already, but I want to revisit it because I read it, quite a while ago. But there were so many good things in there, and I feel like I need to like remind myself of what I took away from that book and see if I can now reapply it to my team now about 10 years later, in a different way. But Talent Code's like a really, really cool book about research that's done on these talent hotbeds around the world. I don't know if you guys have read it or are familiar with it at all, but the author studies talent hotbeds is what he calls it. Some are sports, some are music, and it's really, he just talks about how everything's learned. That it's not talent. It's actually learned, and there's reason behind how people become so good at something. That it's not by luck. And so and then there's these different elements, but I'm going to go started on that. I listen to a lot of sports radio when I drive in the car, now that I'm in Philly. So I kind of get a little bit more invested in that way. Listening to the sports radio is probably what I listen to most. I haven't gotten into the podcast thing. I mean, I will, like if someone recommends one, I'll listen to an episode, but I haven't gotten into, really consistently, listening to them, but I've started to do more recently. So I'm been flirting around, like listening to some. I enjoy listening to wrestlers talk. Obviously, it's like I love listening to John Smith. So listening to some of the stuff that he's done recently has been really cool. He's really sharp.
Yeah. What about music-wise? What's on in the room?
I listen to what my kids like to listen to, and unfortunately, they mostly listen to pop. Like the top 40. They always, I got the sports radio on. They're like, Dad, can you turn on the hits? Can you turn on Q102? And it's like, so I listen to a lot of that. My go-to is more like I grew up on oldies. I like oldies and classic rock is probably what I prefer. The throwbacks.
When you say oldies, you talking like Motown?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Like I like out of the 60s there and just a lot of different classic rock. That's all we would listen to. My dad would listen to it. So we all had to listen to it. And, we know all the songs, me, my brother and my sister. So, and I do like my 90s hip hop and rap as well. So, definitely grew up in that era, and, in Vegas, that was it.
Nice. Last, but certainly not least, Coach, this question used to have a much more lighthearted question before March of 2020. Now it's taken a little bit more serious turn. But when you're not coaching wrestling or spending time with your family or checking out new awesome food restaurants in Philadelphia, do you ever find yourself in a rabbit hole? Do you have a favorite conspiracy theory? Do you have any insight into Area 51 growing up in Las Vegas?
I think that the older I get, the thing that still sometimes shocks me and surprises me is just how much more corruption there is the higher levels you get in anything. I think I always thought as a kid, like things would get more equal or level playing field, or more like more. I got the word on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of it. But I think what I found is just as you get to the highest levels of anything, there's more corruption. And I think as a kid, as an innocent kid, I thought the opposite. It's like you're at a kid's tournament and you're getting, screwed over by a ref or something like that. And you're thinking that, when you get to the best of the best, it's going to be more on the level and everybody's going to be held accountable. And even like maybe, society wise as well, not getting into too many details, but yeah, it's, I think that's been something that's been frustrating for me as an adult, is just, sometimes maybe feeling like you're spinning your wheels and that there's people out there that are controlling things that behind the scenes. So that's my, that's as deep as it gets for me. But you would like my brother's probably answer better than mine. He's really, we're pretty different in some ways, not like in a bad way, but just like he's got long hair and a beard, and I'm clean cut, and college coach. He does freelance work, and but he's got some pretty strong opinions on some of this stuff.
Right on. We're picking up what you're putting down, Coach. We can relate. We understand and appreciate. So thank you for sharing everything with us today.
I really appreciate you answering that question, Coach. I know you were kind of giving us your answers, but a lot of college coaches run away from the conspiracy question. So we appreciate you stepping up to the bat and answering and give us, the answers that you could. So we appreciate that. Coach, thank you so much for your time tonight. I don't know if you knew what you were getting into tonight, but we appreciate you taking the time out of your day. You had a red eye and joining the Airey Bros, and you got 2 more Dragon Wrestling fans. So best of luck this season. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I appreciate you reaching out and thinking of me, of our program. So
yeah,
enjoy
good luck this season. Give them hell.
Yep. See you guys.
Have a
Take
good
care.
one.